The Istanbul Cipher. Chapter 8. The room in the back of the youth center smelled like soldering dust and stale tea. Sunlight filtered through cracked blinds, striping the table where Emre's laptop sat open. The four teens leaned in, shoulders tight, eyes sharper than I'd seen in days. Layla spoke first. We all saw it fall apart, but now we know why. She looked at Emre, who nodded grimly and tapped a key. The projector hummed to life, throwing a cascade of code onto the back wall. "This line wasn't mine," Emre said. "Injected through a third-party dependency. It spoofed one of our update calls, just long enough to crash the live environment." He highlighted the timestamp. 10 minutes before we went on stage. Ayla crossed her arms. He planned it. Kadir knew we'd get traction, and he cut the legs out from under us before we got close. Nobody argued. That silence was more damning than any shout. Sibyl tilted her head, her voice low. "Then we ask, what did he not want us to find?" They all looked at me. I said nothing. I was done pretending I could lead this from the front. These weren't students anymore. They were insurgents. Layla stood. "We keep going, but no more guessing. We find a site they can't deny, one no one's claimed, a ghost place, visible again." Sibyl gave a half smile, and for the first time in days, her voice had heat. I might have one. The air shifted. The silence that followed wasn't from fear this time. It was from knowing the story had just cracked open again. Sibyl led us out of the youth center and into the late afternoon light. Her stride was tight, purposeful, cutting across Istiklal like she didn't have time for red lights or second guesses. "Where are we going?" Ayla asked, catching up. "To my uncle's university archive annex," Sibyl said. "I told him I needed access for a research paper. Technically true?" The annex was an old building tucked behind an opera rehearsal hall, barely marked. Inside, fluorescent lights buzzed over steel cabinets and forgotten filing boxes. A single clerk nodded without looking up as we passed. Sibyl led us into a side room and locked the door behind us. She moved fast, past folders labeled in Ottoman Turkish, past brittle maps in plastic sleeves, until she stopped at a nondescript banker's box. She pulled it out, placed it on the long metal table, and opened the lid. Inside, a folder, hand-labeled in thick pencil. "Astvat Satsin, Istanbul, unknown date." She lifted the top page. A photo, black and white, creased along the corners. Dust flared off it like breath in cold air. The image showed a wall, carved stone, eroded but distinct. At first glance, just texture. But behind the collapse, buried in the stonework, a mosaic flickered like an optical illusion. A cross nestled inside a crescent. Layla gasped. That's the symbol in my grandmother's story. The one on the church door." Sibyl laid the photo beside another. A building half used as a warehouse, stacked with grain sacks. In the 50s, it was a trade depot. Before that, a school. But if the legends are right... She trailed off, tapping the crescent cross with one finger. It was never any of those things. Not really. I leaned in. "Where is this?" Sibyl smiled just slightly. "We're standing above it. Give or take a few city blocks." A chill ran up my arms. Not from fear. From recognition. This wasn't a clue. It was a buried truth clawing its way back to the surface. We crowded around the photo as if proximity might make it sharper. Sibel pulled a magnifier from her bag and angled it against the lamplight. "You see this line?" she said, pointing just beneath the mosaic. "That's mortar from a later edition. Someone patched this intentionally, covered it." "Not erased," Emre murmured. "Just overwritten." "Exactly," Siebel said. "This wasn't lost. It was hidden." She opened a second folder, documents typed in Armenian, Greek, and French. Most were fragments, old letters, blueprints without signatures, smudged photographs of Istanbul's waterfront before the highways carved it up. One was a church roster from 1912, listing Astvat Satsin as a worship site. The address field was blank. "It's been passed down in my family like folklore," Siebel said. "A chapel where Muslim dervishes and Christian merchants prayed together in secret when they couldn't do it openly." Layla looked up. "Is that even possible?" "In Istanbul?" Siebel smiled, but her eyes were fierce. "Everything's possible. We've just forgotten how layered this city is." Isla leaned back, arms crossed, quiet but alert. "Okay. Say it's real. Say it's still here, somewhere. What then? We scan it?" "No," Emre said. "We rebuild it, digitally, prove it existed and still matters." "And how do we even find it?" Isla asked. Siebel pointed to the mosaic. "The legend says the door isn't a door until you know where to knock." That was my great-grandfather's phrase. He'd whisper it every time he walked past a certain alley near the old Galata grain depot. My heart kicked. That grain depot came up during our earlier mapping, Suleymaniye district near the retention wall. "So," I said slowly, "we've got a symbol, a location, and a family legend." "And," Layla added, tapping the photo, "a structure buried in plain sight." A hush fell. This wasn't just digital archaeology anymore. It was resistance, memory, resurrected. And this time, we controlled the light. The annex door clicked shut behind us. Siebel locked it with care, slipping the key back into the lining of her boot. We stepped into the night air like fugitives from our own city. None of us spoke for a long moment. Then Layla broke the silence. "We're doing this off-grid." "No permits," Isla added, voice flat. "No cultural ministry, no press releases." Emre nodded, shoulders squaring. "Just us and the map." We ended up at a rooftop cafe above Istiklal Street. It was mostly empty, just a few tourists nursing apple tea under strings of dim bulbs. Istanbul glittered beneath us, a city of rooftops and shadows, where the secret still lived between the cracks. Layla spread out a large sheet of butcher paper. "New map," she said. "Forget the official one. We're making our own. Layered Istanbul. Places built on top of places." Emre set up his laptop and pulled up the AR scaffolding for the app. "We'll create a fork of the original project, strip out the compromised code, reroute to encrypted servers." Isla leaned in. "We'll need drone access if we're going to get elevation scans. I know a kid who flies for weddings. He owes me a favor." Sebel pulled a notebook from her satchel. "And I'll start drafting oral history prompts for elders, refugees, anyone who might have walked through that chapel before it vanished." I didn't say much, just watched. Each of them had found their lane again, but not because I'd told them to, because they'd chosen it. They weren't fixing a school project anymore. They were decoding a city, layer by layer, truth by truth. "You realize," I said finally, "this puts us in direct conflict with, well, a lot of people." "We're not starting a war," Layla said, her voice steady. "We're telling a story." "Yeah," Siebel added, "one they tried really hard to silence. I'd come here to teach, to protect, maybe even to inspire. But now, I was following them. The map lay between us, slowly filling with hand-drawn layers, ghost churches, vanished hammams, buried synagogues, forgotten techies. Layla sketched rooftops from memory. Ayla tapped coordinates into her phone like a code breaker. Emre's fingers danced over his keyboard, building the app again from bare bones. Siebel caught my gaze. "You still with us, Mr. M?" "I'm not sure I was ever leading you," I said, half smiling. "But yeah, I'm in." A soft breeze stirred napkins and the smell of clove smoke. Across the table, Emre paused. "The mosaic. The one from the photo. I've been thinking." He pulled up an image from Seibel's archive. Grainy, grayscale, but unmistakable. A faded wall, a faint arc of blue tile, a carved arch that looked almost erased. "There's something in the geometry," he said. "If we run an edge detection filter and overlay the historical satellite data from the 1960s, you'll get a shape," Siebel said, leaning in. "Not just a shape," Emre replied. "A location. Close. Precise enough to narrow the search." Layla leaned over his shoulder. "That's just behind the spice market, where the delivery vans park now. And where half the city pretends nothing was ever built before the 1980s, Siebel added. "Layered truths, layered lies, and all of them paved over like inconvenience." I exhaled slowly. "If you go in, you need to be careful. Quiet. No confrontation." "We're not storming it," Ayla said. "We're scanning it." "And documenting," Siebel added. "Carefully, respectfully, before it vanishes for real." The air was heavy with something more than heat. Purpose, maybe. That dangerous kind of resolve that sneaks up only when you have nothing left to prove and everything left to fight for. "I'll handle the logistics," I said. "Cover you if anyone starts asking questions." Siebel looked at me. "You're really in this now, aren't you?" I met her eyes. "Yeah, I think I was always in it. I just didn't know what it was yet." I stepped back from the table, letting the low hum of conversation wash over me. They didn't notice. They were too deep in it now. Layla's hair was a halo of focus under the amber cafe light. Emre muttered lines of code as he restructured the AR engine from scratch. Siebel's notebook lay open beside a digital recorder, a neat column of names forming on the page. Witnesses, elders, survivors. Ayla mapped the drone path like a strategist before battle. They didn't need permission anymore. A flicker of pride caught in my throat before I could clear it. I sat at the edge of the rooftop, looking out at the spine of the city. Rooftops, domes, minarets, satellite dishes, all jumbled together like Istanbul never decided what century it wanted to live in. Then my phone buzzed. No name, no number, just a notification. One new message. I opened it. A grainy image loaded. Same mosaic from Seibel's folder, but this one in color. Restored. Illuminated. Taken from an angle that would have been impossible now. unless someone had access to the site decades ago, or recently. Below the image, a line of handwriting. It wasn't erased. It was hidden. You just need the right light. There was no sender, no timestamp, no metadata. And then the kicker, another text, this one pure threat. You're trespassing in curated memory. Stop now or disappear with the others. I stared at the screen until it dimmed. Then I looked back at the team. They were still bent over their plans, their shared vision pulsing like a quiet engine. I pocketed the phone and whispered, "Too late." Because I finally understood. This wasn't just history we were uncovering. It was a war over who gets to define the past. And these kids were winning. And someone out there didn't like that one bit.